Hello, Abigail here with the Tarotscopes for Pisces season, Capricorn Sun, Moon, and Rising. All right, my Capricorn people, this Pisces season is quite a season. We have a eclipse, we have Venus stationing retrograde, Mercury stationing retrograde, Mars stationing direct. Personal planets are doing their thing, and when that happens, our internal life and our intimate lives get kind of torn up. There is a collective feeling of instability and unrest. Interestingly enough, a lot of Capricorns I've talked to lately are kind of feeling a little more chilled out. I do think things are going to kick back up in Pisces season. So just be aware that if you're feeling a little like, things have slowed down, they are going to pick back up. I think a lot of that has to do with, that Mars station and then heading back towards the degrees of stuff you've already been through. And you're like, oh, I've dealt with that. Oh, we have to do it again. So just be aware. Let's just kind of run through what Pisces season looks like overall. If you want more nitty gritty stuff, I do a weekly video on the kind of general astrology of the week. Anyways, so we start off Pisces season on the 18th. Then on the 23rd, we get Mars stationing direct in Cancer. Yes, we have a couple months of post retrograde shadow, but we are moving ahead. Very nice. I'm excited. Also, because you are Saturn ruled, we're going back into those Saturn trines. With Mars. So that should be interesting. Those malefics creating this beautiful flow, which can also seem like a lot. And that also puts your ruler under pressure from Mars. So keep that in mind. Then we have this new moon in Pisces. I do feel like this new moon, while it does have, a square to Jupiter and stuff, I do think there's a lot of opportunity in this new moon to kind of set the tone for eclipse season or set intentions around stuff you want to work on. Once we're in eclipse season, there's not much you could do. So, kind of presetting a few things to be like, hey, I would really like this to happen or to do this during eclipse season. The trick with eclipses is you don't really know what's going to happen. And you kind of have to trust that the universe, while it's tearing through your personal life, is doing what's best. Then we move into, Venus retrograde on the 1st of March. Then we have Mercury entering into Aries on the 3rd. And then on the 14th, we have a total lunar eclipse in Virgo. Now, this one is a doozy. It is wrapped up in all of the things. We have that North Node, we have that Neptune, we have this moon here. So know that it's going to be a lot. It's going to be intense. It's in a fellow earth sign. So you will be trying, even if it's not a direct trine, it'll be influencing, the things that happen in your Capricorn house and whatever Capricorn placements you have, which I'm guessing you have if we are watching this video. So just be prepared. Eclipses are kind of like a bull in the china shop. My real advice for them is just clear whatever you can, before they happen, just so it doesn't feel like everything's being ripped out of your grasp. And, I don't want to doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom, but it is all intensity. And we're in a dual eclipse season where we have, pardon me, I have IBS and sometimes it comes into play in these recordings, and I have no intention of re-recording this because of that. Thoughts. I did apologize to the Sagittarians who I recorded before this because my ADHD is off the chain today. Anyways, centering back in with that eclipse, do what you can, trust, and then we're in a dual eclipse season. I found it. So we have that eclipse over on one side in, on the 14th. Then at the end of March, we have that final Aries eclipse on the 29th. And so moving into Aries season, we're in an eclipse portal. Sometimes things do happen directly on eclipses, but I find the majority of the work happens in that 2-week period in between, and I call that the eclipse portal. A lot of people do. Moving on, we have Mercury stationing retrograde the day after, so the ruler of that eclipse is stationing retrograde. We're going to be revisiting a lot of these themes. Also, once we hit Virgo season later this year, we have 2 Virgo new moons. One is an eclipse new moon, one is not. So just store away whatever's happening now because it is going to resurface kind of in a 2-part series in the fall. Then we move into, well, not technically fall, in the late summer. I always consider Virgo season fall, but it's not. Then we have Mercury retrograde on that day after, and then we enter into Aries season. And there's so much more happening in between, but this is kind of the general overlay. Moving into the cards, I do absolutely love the card you get. You get Enchanted Unity, let animals be your guide. And I do think this is important. I think this is an important time if you have a pet of any kind to be listening to them. Um, you can watch their cycles and maybe join in and participate. If you don't have a pet, then learning about animals and how they take care of themselves. And also, one of the most beautiful things about animals is their natural connection to natural rhythms and patterns. And when we get involved as humans, oftentimes we disrupt that. So, watching and observing animals, listening to animal wisdom, treating yourself like more like a creature than a corporate underling, or a capitalistic wage slave. Um, treat yourself more like a creature. Free yourself. I know it's hard. You can't free yourself from everything in this, like capitalistic society, but you can free yourself from some of the mental shackles. You can participate in nature and in the world around you in a more natural and, I don't know if natural is the word I want because it's misused a lot, but in a more innate way. Um, if you're having trouble sleeping, if you're having trouble eating, see what happens when you listen to what your body's telling you. Maybe you need to meet that need sooner. Maybe you need to meet that need later. It's about listening, it's about connecting to the animal body and about taking our our little P's and Q's and our little hints from the animals around us and the nature that we live in. Me sitting here in a city, nature starved. We were supposed to go out of town a couple weeks ago, and that ended up into a whole thing. So I am starving and craving nature. And if you live in a place that has nature, go out and enjoy nature for me. Um, I will touch a tree surrounded by cement sometime today. I do have my plants, so not to diminish them. So yeah, that is kind of the vibe. It is about listening to your instincts and about going with the energy of the universe and the energy of the cosmos rather than forcing yourself into unnatural, untenable cycles. And if you cannot get out of those cycles, do your best to get around them. It is not always possible. Not all of us have the privilege to listen to ourselves, to move with our natural rhythm, but where you can, do that. Moving into the cards, we start off with the Page of Swords. And I love this representation in this deck because so often the court cards are these lonely figures. And in this one, they're helping each other. So I love when this happens because it gives a new perspective and a new energy to what the Page of Swords is. This is the time to be supportive of those around us and also to accept support, to use that intellectual power and energy and that air, that kind of flexible air energy that comes with a page to create new ideas, to spark interest, to inspire other people on their journey and lift them up. And when you're feeling down and when you're feeling uninspired, I know not all of my Capricorns like to rely on humanity. Oh, what a slender read. But to rely on other people's courage when we don't feel like we have it. To rely on other people's acumen and desire when we are feeling starved of our own. I think this also goes back to kind of that animal body type deal. When you find a pack of people that you work well with or a group that you sync up with, be a part of it in whatever way that you can, and not just to contribute but to receive as well. The road goes both ways when it comes to care. Then we have the Five of Wands. Yes, yes. And I love this one too because there's this like little wizard guy, and whenever I read this I'm like, what interpretation should I give it? Is he casting a spell to rain down wands of fire on this character, or is he animating that wand to protect that person? I feel like we can take this multiple ways. But I do think it is a reminder that not everyone has our best interest at heart. So taking that first interpretation. And also a reminder that some of the most unexpected people are our best allies. And also that Mars stationing direct is also going to be triggering for a lot of people who don't want to work on themselves. And they're going to want to pick fights to avoid kind of facing the consequences of their own actions. Also, if you're constantly fighting, you never have to really apologize. So, with this 5 of wands, I think the question really is like what conflict is worth it to you? So, you don't have to absent yourself from conflict. You don't need to bend the knee. You don't need to let people run herd over you. But like, what conflicts are really something you want to engage in? Maybe you need a random stupid scuffle to kind of get, your pent up energy out. But also, maybe you want to conserve that energy for something else, especially with how intense these eclipses are going to be. Then we have our next card, which is the World. The Sagittarians got this as well. They got the very end of their reading. It does feel as though before the ending of eclipse season, we are going through some deep personal transformation. Um, a lot of Capricorns I know are really intuitive and can sense things kind of coming a mile away. Maybe you felt this ending coming, this culmination coming for a long time, and we're getting to the end of that kind of peak cycle. So be ready for some massive kind of alignments. I love that this is, the world and you get the moon and then the sun right behind it. There's some planetary alignment that is about to happen. And it's going to be big, it's going to be intense. And I think we can't talk about the world without talking about the next card. Me not being able to get my hands to work on their own. We also have death. I think that this moment of culmination and this moment of, deep change, it's going to bring some endings. It's going to bring some final moments. Also, an important reminder, since you are Saturn ruled, that later this year, Saturn enters Aries. We are coming to, not quite yet, but we're getting there, the close of Saturn in Pisces. And this is, you know, a season where we're going to start to reckon with the wrapping up of the Saturn cycle. Obviously that, Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces by with the end of 2025, and then we'll move back in 2026. But things are starting to change. If you are listening to the energy, if you are highly intuitive, obviously the things that are happening in our world should scare you and should elicit some desire to participate in the change we all deserve, but also a knowledge that the world is being reborn. And while it is scary and dangerous and we really need to be protecting ourselves and others, we also know that a new world is coming, even if it takes an entire Pluto cycle to do it, 2043 or longer. I know some people are predicting a 60-year period of issues. Some people are predicting that Pluto cycle of issues. Um, I'm not going to predict anything here, but we are coming to some really big culminative endings. Also, Pisces is the final zodiac season, and Saturn and Neptune are moving into Aries, even though they do retrograde back, in 2025. So we are coming to some really big endings. We're coming to the end of a zodiacal cycle. A 12 sign cycle is coming to an end. So this is a really big deal, and things are very heavy and they hold weight, and death is here. But death is also setting things right and recycling energy that is no longer functioning to its best ability. And we get to sit here and participate. And as a Capricorn and as a Saturn ruled sign, you have a lot of hand in endings. You have a lot of hand in the boundaries that endings bring. Um, and it's really powerful and it's really intense. I also want to remind you that the sign, the uh, planet that is exalted in your sign is Mars. Mars works really well in Capricorn. I think that has a lot to do with why, in spite of this detriment season, some of you have been able to metabolize this Martian energy pretty well because you are very familiar with it. Mars is a welcome guest in Capricorn. So, be prepared for what these eclipses bring. I also think with, these big kind of cycles, I think this has a lot to do with the beginning of Aries season and will continue to be kicked off every time a planet hits 0 degrees of Aries over and over again this year because we have those big cycles happening throughout the year. but have hope. I know that death feels scary, but this is another time I think we can kind of return to the animals. Animals have a very natural relationship with death, a very symbiotic relationship. No, they don't want to die. Yes, they fear it. They have those instincts to protect themselves, but I tear up. But if you've ever seen an animal who knows its time has come, most of them, if they have the space to sit with that knowledge, go out very gently and very trusting of death and of the end. And I don't want to be melodramatic. I don't think this is the end, but we are going to be seeing endings, and I don't think it's fair or that you will appreciate it as a Saturn sign for me to sugarcoat, what this Pisces season will be bringing to you. I will say last but not least, we have a really sweet ending card. We have the Six of Cups. There is both beauty and pain in the past, but I think it's a time to reconnect with the past and also a reminder that time is not real. So the past and the future and the present can all, in certain moments, become one beautiful thread. And the reason I use the word thread is because these elephants are wrapped in a golden cord. And it makes me think of past life connections and karmic connections and the people we need to meet and exist with in this life. And some of these are future connections, and some of these are past connections, and some of them are even present connections. And in all of that, to kind of step back and in and connect with this really sweet energy of nostalgia. And maybe it's not nostalgia for an unfortunate childhood or for, a traumatizing time, depending on what your relationship with childhood is. But nostalgia in the sense of that craving and desire for something that feels familiar, that feels like a companion or a friend or an old sweater. Um, and in all of this kind of intense energy in this spread, to return to the little things, to return to things that bring us comfort. It's also, I find this, it's kind of funny to compare this to the devil card. But I do think, in a way, it's a return to old coping mechanisms. I think some of these really big cycles will require us to rely on things we've relied on in the past. And it's important to know that this is not a regression. This is us simply finding something that will help us get through this next phase. And when this phase is over, if you want to, you can retire those coping mechanisms that maybe don't work so well anymore. And when I say coping mechanisms, I don't mean anything that will hurt you or other people. I'm more thinking like, I like to watch TV shows that I am familiar with because they give me comfort type coping mechanism. Or some disassociation, some good old fashioned disassociation. Whatever you need that isn't going to hurt you or others, that can give you comfort at this time, accept it as a gift. Um, and if it, once again outwears its welcome, becomes unhealthy, you can put it down once Pisces season is over. We're not bound to constantly repeat cycles. We can go back and enjoy things if we feel able to. That can help us really get through some really challenging times. Anyways, my dear Capricorn people, this is quite the season. We are going to be experiencing some really big energy and also some kind of annoying energy if we're thinking of the Five of Wands. Pick your battles, pick your passions, trust the universe in these really big moments of endings and cycle shifts and transformations, and hold on to the things that you care about, to those little things, to those past memories or those past connections, or just even that sense of familiar we can sometimes feel with a complete stranger. It's those little things that we can hold on that give us hope, that help us connect to the world when the world is just so overwhelming. All right, my loves, I love you all. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments, or any stories to share or anything. I enjoy just chit chatting. Please like and subscribe if this chaotic moments appealed to you, me realizing my necklace is backwards. Anyways, blessed Pisces season. I love you all, and I will see you in a different place and time.